Lars Nootbaar's back, and as you wrote at STL today, this also means that they're comfortable with Wilson Contreras in that left hand because they sent the rookie catcher down to Memphis to make room for Nootbaar. So the thing I wanted to talk about, though, is I don't know what to expect from Nootbaar. I assume he's ready. Do you think he can? What do you think the chances are he can sort of ignite something with this offense? Because it surely does need that.
Yeah, he sure brings those elements. He felt good when he threw Oliver Marmol. He spoke to Marmol the other day, and one of the things that he talked about, and he mentioned it to us as to what he was chasing by going back to a rehab assignment, was that just a feel for the strike zone and some louder, harder contact. So those two things. So just kind of his timing was pretty good, but he wanted to not chase under the zone. He wanted to kind of tighten up that, let's say, calibrate what he was looking for in the zone, and then be able to drive the pitches when they were in there. And he got to that point. He felt he did really for the first time this past Sunday, continuation Tuesday, then had the rain out yesterday. So he feels like when he talked to us, he felt like he was on the verge of being at the right place. And then after the game here recently, he spoke to Marmol and said that he got there, he laid off some pitches, and that was a good sign for him. To your point about sparking the offense, gosh, if anybody's going to do it, he certainly has the profile to do it. A guy who hits the ball hard, takes his walks when he's at his best, one of the best there is at walk rates, solid hitter when it comes to exit velocity and driving the ball, kind of a doubles machine if he gets going, and left-handed. Left-handed, cannot underscore that enough. Just the left-handed presence that changes the lineup quite a bit to give the Cardinals the potential. The potential, it hasn't manifested, but the potential for what really you don't see many play. In fact, really, Philly has been one of those teams that has been really strong with the Schwarber-Harper left-handed presence. And with the Cardinals, you talk about like Donovan, who has a couple of home runs, Gorman, who has the power but has struck out quite a bit. You put in the mix there somebody who's a little bit more OBP than Gorman, can be a little less slugged than Gorman, and that's Nootbaar, and that could really help balance out this lineup, especially if Marmol opts to bat him third.
No, I totally agree with you. So I think we're all, anticipating, we're enthusiastic about his return and hope. And I don't mean this in a snarky way. It just hope that he'll stay there and not come up with something else like running into a wall or whatever. Let's talk about the outfield, and they've been doing the best they can as far as putting people out there. And listen, I think we've all admired the way Victor Scott II's been going at it. It was a tough day yesterday, and I'm not overreacting to that. In fact, the things that he told you and other reporters was quite admirable as far as owning it and, understanding that's part of the game. I thought, again, he's very mature. I know Ali Marmol's used that word a lot. However, if they had a full contingent of outfielders, he probably wouldn't have been up here to start the season. And even if somebody had already filtered back in, do you see a likelihood that they will send him to Memphis before Dylan Carlson rejoins the team? What do you think that at least the chances of that are?
Boy, yeah, I mean, that would mean that Lars Nootbaar is your center fielder, right? I mean, that's sort of how that goes unless Tommy Edman is back before Dylan. That could happen. Tommy is slightly further ahead in his return than Dylan in the sense that Tommy's doing baseball activities now and Dylan's not. But Dylan's rehab is going to be a little bit more predictable coming back from what he has than what Tommy has experienced with his wrist. So, it's a great question. And, it's really kind of a coin flip. I mean, they need his defense, and they really want to double down on the defense. It becomes a litmus test of that, right? Like,
sure.
All right, how committed to defense are you? But, that's almost an oversimplification because at some point in time you need to go, man, are you really, holding the young man back? Are you putting him in such a hole in the majors that you are going to limit his further development? Like, is he going to spend, this year digging down deep with his batting average to then spend next year as the starter digging out from that? And what does that do to him? Where does that leave him? Can he get by on being dynamic defensively alone? He really has become, in a way, like the question facing the Cardinals, right? Like, can they be so good defensively and relatively strong? I know, Palante obviously had some weird stuff yesterday, but gosh, he got the ground balls that he needed, and the bullpen has the highest batting average of balls in plays in the majors. Can they rely on the defense being saran wrap and the relievers being, if not fireproof, fire resistant to win? And I'm not sure they can. They need to score runs at some point in time, so that same answer probably applies to Victor Scott too, right? He's got to produce offensively at some point.
Yeah, I wasn't advocating. Yeah, you got to get him out of here, send him down. And I know you know that, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. But it's a question that that's just going to come up more often. But I don't want to make it sound like I'm overreacting to what happened yesterday, because I've been impressed by his poise and all those good things. So we'll see. But I also know I don't think they want to play Nootbaar in center field. What about let's talk about the other young outfielder out there. Well, not Burleson, but Jordan Walker. It's been tough, man. Mm-hmm. I know he still hits the ball fairly hard, but he's hitting it on the ground a lot, and there's just not a lot to show for his season so far, and he's only played 11 games, and I get all that. But, heck, he came out of the box really strong last year, so maybe I was just expecting him to do it again. Maybe that's unfair to expect a repeat performance. These things have their own clock, but what do you make of his early season struggles?
Yeah, there's something to him, and in his case, and in Goldschmidt's case, and in Arenado's case, it's not isolated to this start of the schedule. I mean, they had their struggles in spring. That can be. There's a whole lot of reasons for that, and they can kind of dismiss those. And spring isn't so much an indicator as it is a process. But when those things spill over into the regular season, it's the same kind of thing, then it's worth going, okay, all right, where are they, and what does that mean? In Jordan's case, he's not missing the ball a whole lot, but he's not driving the ball in the air, and it's a lot of where, it's a lot of where they were last year at this time. A lot of it, just without the hitting streak. I think there were more balls getting through last year. I'm not sure that he was all that different with where his swing was. There was a discussion with some scouts, evaluators, everybody, just about what should the Cardinals' approach be with. These are all folks outside the Cardinals. The Cardinals are, they've made their decision. But what the Cardinals' approach with Jordan Walker should be. And, there was one argument, Bernie, and I'd like to get your, feedback on this, is just let him go hit. Try to go hit for high average. Hit the ball hard. And if it's on the ground, it's on the ground. But go hit. Get some feedback. Get some positivity going. Be a high average hitter, because you always have been. And then as Jordan matures and grows, the power will be there. That lift will be there. But he'll have built it on a bedrock of a high average, not race to get there right now. It's as if the Cardinals are trying to get the power from him, when one approach you could be is get the consistency from him.
No,
and
that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. The obvious comparison there is Aaron Judge, and what the huge difference, no pun intended, between the two is that Jordan came out of high school and Aaron Judge came out of college. So the things that Jordan is doing now, he's doing at the highest level, whereas Judge was in college being a pretty good hitter, but not hitting for a whole lot of power, but pretty good hitter. Getting his hits, getting his high average, getting, hitting the ball harder than fielders could get to, all that stuff. But the power came later. The power came in his mid-20s, came as he stormed to the majors. Jordan is trying to do that without the college years that Aaron Judge had to kind of become that polished hitter. And Jordan's doing it at the highest level.
Yeah, I think your theory there's a lot of merit to that. There's no doubt about it. But there was a pretty big buildup. I'm talking about even nationally. He'll be the breakout player of the year and all this stuff. So it's just you would like to have seen him have a better launch, but it's still got 95% of the schedule to go. But
so much time left. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
but their offense.
There's a really good feel that he probably, when he gets, this is the sense, right? Okay, is he's got such clear ability that when he gets it, he has it for good, right? And I think that's where some of the breakouts kind of predictions and even some like the internal discussions are and everything like that is it's worth chasing this power the way the Cardinals are doing it. They're arguing because once Jordan gets it, he's never going to lose it. And away he goes. That's just been that's the kind of talent he has.
I wanted to talk to you because I think there are some positives to talk about from the standpoint of fans being excited, and I think Ivan Herrera's got to be high on the leaderboard. Mason Wynn as well. Mm-hmm. Gosh, Derrick, we all could tell that he had learned some things, and you could just tell by reading his numbers and what people were saying about him that he matured in a hurry. He became a different young catcher last year, maybe even late the year before that. And his presence in the batter's box is really, I don't know how to put it into words. It's just kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
This is like a guy that doesn't look like a young hitter who's kind of feeling for it, or maybe doesn't have solid confidence yet. I mean, he just looks impressive. How excited are the Cardinals about him, and how does it shift their thinking maybe? And I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit because I saw on social media, they're gonna have to trade Contreras, so you're gonna start trading this guy. You don't need to trade anybody, but. That said, how does this kind of shift whatever thought process they had about where Herrera fits and how much he'll play?
Yeah, I think the most significant shift is that the backup is no longer untouchable. Like they're no longer playing with what would be a 25-man roster right now. For years and years and years, while Molina was the starting catcher, they would go weeks without the backup catcher appearing, right? And they would look for a catch-and-throw guy they used to talk about, right? Like a guy who, when he was in there, they knew they could rely on the defense. Like that was going to be the stability because he wasn't going to get a whole lot of at-bats to stay sharp offensively. Really the only time that I can think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they had a catcher who they would use as a pinch hitter even semi-regularly, it was Matt Wieters, and that was partially because he was a switch hitter. And he brought the chance to put the ball over the wall. But otherwise, it's really been a guy who was there to catch and throw and to get the trust of the pitchers and to keep that going because the starts are going to be so few and far between. And even when, I don't think Kinzer for a long time was there, and it seemed like he had an offensive upside. But always lurking was this idea that he wasn't going to start very much to ever get that rhythm going offensively. So I think with Kisner, he had the upside, but never got the playing time. I think with Herrera, he has the upside, and he's going to get the playing time. And how the Cardinals are rethinking that because of the push that Herrera's made is that he may start at catcher against left-handed pitchers. So that Contreras is the DH, and you would have both of the catchers on the roster in the lineup. And if something happens, then Contreras goes behind the plate, and the Cardinals start playing a National League game. But they are open to that. I asked about that in spring training, and Oliver Marmol mapped out exactly how that would play out, and said that there's no other reason to do that other than you want Herrera's bat in the lineup, and he's doing enough defensively that you can do that.
Derrick Goold with us for a couple more minutes. Let's talk about Goldie and Arenado. I don't know what else there's to say. I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and there's it's not a contest. I feel like I'm guilty of that sometimes. Like, well, who should we be more concerned about? I mean, Goldie's older. Arenado's young.
Good to go around. You can be both.
Yeah, but I don't like I had Ben Clemens, a friend of mine for Fangraphs, who's a lifelong Cardinals fan, but he's always objective about Cardinals matters. I'm just putting this to you just to kind of tell you like of an outside view that I think we I know that I respect it. He said on the show yesterday that he still's got reasonable confidence that Goldie will find it, this and that. He said he used the word. He said what I see with Arenado, and Ben's not a hot take guy at all. He said what I see with him is quote terrifying. So that got my attention because again he's a level-headed guy. He's not a big mouth like I am. It is a little. I don't know if it's terrifying, but that power hadn't been there for quite a while now. I mean, this is not like something that just happened. It started to happen last year to an extent.
Yeah, it's been we were trying to figure out a way to put it. I think it's been about a school year since his last home run, right? I mean, the kids weren't in school the last time he hit a home run, and they're about to graduate or leave school here for the summer, and he's still looking for that home run. That's a long time, and that includes spring. I know he's not hitting home runs in the winter, so I know I get it. I'm playing with the calendar a little bit, but
You're being cheeky.
Yeah, I don't mean to be because
no, I know.
I mean there's no one who's wearing it more than he is, and it's clear that he is trying and has been trying to drive the ball to all fields and to really increase the speed at which his hands get that bat going and the damage it can do to all field. I mean, we watched this homestand. A lot of balls to right field for him, a lot of balls to him, and he has got great bat-to-ball ability. It's one of the things that, like, hitting coaches and hitting technicians and the hitting instructors and all that stuff all kind of rave about is, Arenado's skill, similar to that, like Alec Burleson, just as far as getting the bat on the pitch. But that doesn't mean it's always right to. Sometimes it's better to get the bat on the ball that you can drive, not just make contact. And there just hasn't been much pull side success for him. When he does pull the ball, look at some of the doubles. He had that hard ground ball down the line. They got through. He's had some extra base hits here, and they've been pulls, pull side. So, this notion that he wants to use the whole field, his power is to the pull side. You can kind of see how he's caught, as Tony La Russa used to say, in between a little bit. Now, the question for him, and I think this is something that I know that this is something that he's asked, is like, what's the upside? All right, is the reward going to be worth the work, right? Or can he go back to being that pull hitter that had success? No one has more pull side home runs than Nolan Arenado since Nolan Arenado debuted. No one does. That worked at Coors Field. That worked where he played most of his games. Now he plays at a ballpark that is very, suppresses that. And does he have to change the game, or can he still get rewarded for it if he's able to go back to that? I think that's the weird fulcrum that he's balancing on right now.
And I haven't looked at Goldie's numbers in terms of what you just referred to, pulling the ball. But I know that last season, compared to his other seasons, he was going to right field a lot more often.
Paul Goldschmidt?
Goldie last year. Like there was a big turn in that. Like and one of the things I talked about in the offseason is like you'd like to see him pulling the ball again because that's where his power was. And
interestingly, he had more opposite field home runs than anyone in the majors. So it's weird because both of those guys in the last 11 years, one has the most pull side, the other one has the most opposite field. But like his damage, like his slugging doubles and all that stuff, he was able to hit a lot of home runs comparatively. But like what you're talking about, like building that slugging percentage, there's a lot of pull there.
I'm not saying there isn't, and I can't call it up right now because Bill James Online does not exist anymore.
No.
He shut it down. Yeah, I know. But he had comprehensive breakdowns of this, and where you could see everything in terms of whether right-handed batters hitting the left side up to the right. Where it was broken down by categories, and I was just, to me, the numbers that he had based on 2023 were really glaring. I was like, wow, why so many balls hit the right? With not a lot of damage being done, even though it seems like he's making an effort to hit to the opposite field.
That's the part, yeah,
it doesn't have enough to show for it. And whereas the pull side numbers were still really, really strong. So I was puzzled by that. And, one of my associates said, well, maybe he doesn't get around on the fastballs anymore. And then, although that's not really been the case even this year so far, he's okay against fastballs. So I don't know. He's an interesting case to try to solve because he's so intelligent as a hitter, and I don't think that he's done. He's toast. I think there's another level he can get to. We all agree he's not going to get to 2022 again, but this is really fascinating to see how this will play out because he's always been really good about fixing whatever needs to be fixed. Maybe going back to Arizona will help him. Really, he always loves that ballpark to hit in it, so I don't know.
Oh, I thought you meant traded. Never mind. Gotcha. Okay. I was like, well, that took a turn.
No,
I mean, I guess the Diamondbacks might be in the market for a first baseman here. We'll see. But wow, that. Yeah, maybe. I mean, he does. He's obviously. I mean, I think some of the things you're describing. They talk candidly about it. Goldschmidt and Arenado about the ballpark they call home for 81 games and how they have to use line to line and not always be pull. I think I know what you're talking about with Goldschmidt, where he was going the other way, but not doing the damage that way, like not getting that same. Yeah.
Right.
But also not getting like the singles. There just wasn't like the same. There wasn't. Again, it's back to what we were talking about with Arenado. It's like there wasn't the reward for this attempt to better utilize Busch Stadium. With him, it's early, but we still have spring. We have spring training to also look at, and the he's not hitting the ball with a lot of authority. And why is that? Like, what is it? That could be. Timing. That could be just under the pitch. That could be pitch recognition. We saw him expand the zone a little bit, which we hadn't really done that. And when I asked about that, he was not very receptive to the question. I don't know if that was the timing of it or if he thought I was wrong. I mean, it's entirely possible he thought I was wrong. Or he hadn't gone back and looked at the event, but he did go chasing after, 97 up and out of the zone. Some of it too, which brings me to what you're talking about. Some of it too is how they're being pitched, and if opponents and scouts and all that stuff see what we see and go, well, they're willing to go the other way with the ball, but they're not doing so with authority, then why would we ever pitch in? Why wouldn't we just go away all the time?
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you go to Fangraphs too. They have a different set of numbers where his opposite field stuff's not as bad as what was listed at Bill James. So I'm more confused than ever. So anyway,
well, hopefully I helped in some way. I mean, he does.
Well, of course, you always
his
do.
Home runs are opposite field. I mean, he does get opposite field home runs. He does that as well as anybody. But like the part of the balanced diet, right? The singles and doubles that are all part of your average, your nutritious balanced diet when it comes to slugging, they haven't been there. And, you can see that reflected however you want to do on the slugging or in the average or something like that, or just in the quality or how hard or how authoritative the balls are put in play to that side.
It's a mystery. We're going to see how it plays out, because I think he's got some kick left in him. So Derrick, enjoy your son's baseball game today. Always great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, always great to talk to you too, Bernie. Hope to catch up with you next week from what could be the last trip to Oakland, but doesn't feel like it'll be the last trip to Oakland for the Cardinals. And I'm not playing coy that they're going to play each other in the playoffs. That's not what I'm saying. It just seems like this is just a weird spot for Oakland fans and Oakland baseball to be in. That it has a resolution where they ultimately keep the A's, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, you have to give us some skinny at STL today and at the Post-Dispatch about how bad the ballpark looks. Because,
oh boy,
it's
just in the press box. Yeah,
the condition, and I don't know if any Cardinals players will talk about horrific experiences in the visitors' clubhouse or whatever. The umpire, my friend Ron Culpa, through the years, whenever he visits Oakland, usually would have a story to tell, like a text message about, oh, you wouldn't believe this now. It's like, it's just so. It's almost hard to believe it's like a major league team has been there as long as it has. The way the deterioration of the ballpark has gone.
Yeah, no word on whether Ricky Henderson has asked them to remove his name from the field. I guess we'll find out.
And the owners, I could use a nasty name. I won't, but the ownership is awful.
Yep.
So, well, take care, man.
All right, thanks.
We'll see you. That's our good friend Derrick Goold here on the Bernie Show. I was looking at this Jim Hewer. Goldie, when he went, hold on one second, my bad. When he went to the opposite field last year, he had a good batting average, but it was not as good. It was about 60 points lower than it was in 2022. He had 4 home runs opposite field last season, and that's kind of in line. There was a time where he was hitting 9, 10, 12 home runs a year to the opposite field. Mm-hmm. He hit 4 in 2019. I'm not going to even count 2020 for obvious reasons. He hit 5 in 21. He hit 6 in 2022. He hit 4 last year, so that's not a lot of home runs to the opposite field, even though the batting average was good. So I'm not quite sure, frankly, what to make of that. But he did hit last season. All right, let me do this really quick, and it does seriously, and it will be really, really quick. He hit last season, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, but I didn't have the numbers that I needed to present to Derrick. He had 138 bats last season when he drove the ball or he hit the ball to the opposite field, right? So he hit a home run 4 times in 138 at bats when he went oppo. That's an average of that's a homer like every 34 and a half at bats on average. Last year he hit 144 at bats, roughly the same, but he hit 15 home runs when he pulled it. So when he hit the ball to the opposite field, he homered every 34 at bats, and when he pulled it, pull side power, of course, left field, he hit a home run every 9.6 at bats. So my question is still the same, because he does get base hits when he goes the opposite field. So I'm not saying it's like a total futile pursuit, but I'm not sure why he's gone there so much, because the power does not translate when he hits to the opposite field. The batting average does, the power does not. And yet, last year when people were talking about his aging curve and all that, which is fine, he still was pretty massive in terms of what he could do damage-wise when he pulled the ball to left, So I don't know what's going on there. I really don't. He slugged 790 last year when he pulled the ball. 790.
That's
So what? Can he? There's a sneaking suspicion that maybe, or one theory, maybe it's he doesn't feel he can pull enough pitches, maybe the hard stuff, maybe some of the hard breaking stuff. They're not, unless somebody hangs a breaking ball, like a slider or whatever, kind of hard to pull. I don't know, but there's something there. All of a sudden, he, it just seemed like his attempts to go to the right side, go to the opposite field, he was getting base hits, but he was not hitting many home runs compared to pulling it.
I just, you said something, it sounds simple and almost like, oh, come on. I wonder if going back to Arizona just might get him, okay.
I hope.
There is something to be said for familiarity and comfort level, and all of a sudden it's, oh, yeah, I'm not pressing now. Yeah, I got, for instance, if he keeps getting sliders on the outside part of the plate, and if they hang a couple, and if he jacks a couple this week, you're like, okay, maybe he's back. Because it's really perplexing with him and Arenado both. It's like, whoa, boy. It's hard to figure this thing out. Because when you start talking about age curve, it's like with anything, you kind of go, well, I'm looking for bat speed and slower. I don't know. I don't know what it is with Arenado for sure. He seems to me, just watching his stance, he wants to stand upright a little bit too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say this about Arenado and Goldschmidt, and I would be a really just awful person if I, didn't appreciate what they've done in their careers. They've both been, in their own way, excellent hitters. Goldie more complete all-around hitter than Arenado, but Arenado, his pull side power has been phenomenal for a long time. But as we watch them, Jim, and I think you and I have touched on this, but I don't know that we have touched on this with Goldie as much as Arenado. I say this respectfully. Those two guys are always fussing. They're always tinkering. They're always studying hours of videotape, and they're going to these hitting laboratories every off season, and they're trying to perfect the swing. They're chasing perfection, and if they don't get perfection, it's like, well, let me try this, let me do that, and it shows outwardly with Arenado. You can tell when he's not feeling it. You can tell when he's frustrated. You can tell when he is just kind of like sick of everything. Mm-hmm. He wears it. You can see it. Everybody can see it. And he never looks happy. I mean, he rarely looks happy.
Right.
And, and that, I think the fact that he sort of drives his own self nuts is at least part of why he's in decline, because he just can't settle down and be relaxed and do what comes naturally and do what made him such a good power hitter. Gosh, that's one of the things that I wonder about with Major League Baseball. There's a lot of extraordinary hitters, and there's a lot of extraordinary places and teachers where you can become a better hitter. And you should look for answers. I'm not one. Everybody knows this. I'm not a get-off-my-lawn guy when it comes to this stuff. But I also think you can overdo it. And I think both of those guys look like two aging hitters that are overdoing it. They're trying to always fix and tinker and tweak. And, I better go fly out here. I better do. And sometimes, I think they wear themselves out working on this stuff, batting practice, and like just always worrying, working on it. Maybe and not one idea. And again, I know nothing. I admit that. I'm just saying this as an interested and empathetic observer. Maybe they need to just take it a little easier on themselves, because we know that the anxiety and this almost like feverish attitude about fixing everything all the time, never comfortable, never confident, never relaxed. That ain't working for them. So why don't they just try to just calm down a little bit? Now, Goldie doesn't wear it outwardly, but you know that he also drives himself crazy because he never stops. And I think as he gets older, he's probably more determined than ever to just like constantly be trying to change his swing or change his stance, or now I'm going to hit to the opposite field, and where your power has been great when you pull. Is it disrespectful to say? I don't mean it to be disrespectful, but is it disrespectful to say that both of these guys overthink it?
I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's something that needs to be explored, though, especially with Arenado, because look, even when he's going good, he still has happy feet in the box. He always has. I mean, he's constantly moving the feet. You're like, and even at times when you see him in his groove, I always would go, I don't think I've seen too many guys that can get away with that, where they're constantly moving and bang, bang, bang. He's on a roll and he carries a team for a week. But right now, you can see the frustration just wearing him out too. And that's what you speak of. We see that time and time again. He even kind of admitted in some of his off-season interviews and spring training that, he let a lot of things get to him last year. And I would say at this point, I'm guessing there's a little more hangover there with things getting to him. I don't know where he's going to find it. Hopefully one day he just all of a sudden, there it is. It clicks. We'll see.
I do too, and I hope people understand. The comments that I'm making, I'm coming from a sincere place. Mm-hmm. I'm not. Those guys have been too damn good for too long for me to disrespect them by getting just nasty or dismissive of them. But I'm like everyone else. You just can't help but wonder about the aging curve. And the thing I add to the aging curve is the fact that the aging curve might be messing with their heads a little bit, and they just can never stop tinkering. It's like always, I got to do this. I got to fidget. I got to tweak. I got to do this. I got to have extra batting practice. I got to work on this. Oh, I better work on that. It's like, I tell you what, man, it's one thing to be intense. It's a good thing, and to really care, and they obviously care very deeply. But you can just drive yourself nuts with this, and that doesn't help you, So mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at Arenado, and just forgive me here for a second because it'll take a break. I'm looking at and this is just as a Cardinal. Okay, when he pulled the ball, this is when he pulls the ball, right? He had 34 homers in 2021. Then he had 30 in 2022. And then last year that fell off to 23. That's still a lot. I'm just making the point that it fell off. Mm-hmm. And, so what he's been doing is like trying to hit the ball the opposite way now more and more often. And I want to know why. Because this guy was a formidable pull hitter in terms of power, everything else but power, for sure. And, even last year, when he pulled the ball, there's nothing wrong with him. You know what he did when he pulled the ball last year? 398, a 784 slug, and I mentioned 23 homers. What's he trying to fix? I mean, the answer is to hit the ball to the opposite field. I mean, respectfully, and I know I sound disrespectful, but I don't mean to. How is that the answer? I mean, his numbers pulling the ball last year, even with the bad back and all that, were really, really good. Get out of the cage. Get out of your own head. Might be something to think about, right?
It's hard to figure out because I'll tell you the one thing that stood out a couple weeks ago, that Sunday night game against the Dodgers, and the guys were talking on the ESPN side. I was watching Arenado today, and all he was doing is hitting the ball the opposite way in practice. He was really working hard on that, and I was like, that's not really what you want with him. If it's Mason Wynn, okay.
Well, sure.
But Nolan, come on. I was into your point. It seems like there's something going on. He's being told or he's been given some kind of information that leads him to believe this is good for him, and it's not working right now. So
well, I just hit something here that maybe be another clue, and I'll get this. I got it in front of me. Mm-hmm. There's a stat that I actually think is really normal, and I think I don't think it's fancy pants esoteria whatsoever, but I hardly use it because when I refer to ISO, people are like, oh, there he goes again with all this, gobbledygook nonsense. It's not. It really isn't. Isolated power is what it is. It's what it implies, for baseball hitters. You can sort of isolate their power from all other aspects of hitting. So isolated power, it's a computation. You measure a batter's raw power by showing how many extra bases he would average per at bat, defined by slugging percentage. You take the slugging percentage minus the batting average, and then you get down to the nitty-gritty. In other words, you're sort of removing singles from the occasion. You're removing singles from the equation as you're trying to compute what his raw power number is. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, and all you need to know is the numbers. You don't really need me to say more than that. All right, so I'm going to call it ISO, isolated power. His first year as a Cardinal when he pulled the ball, and I think this could be something. Because he studies all this stuff. His brother does. He's got all these different hitting assistants out on the West Coast and everything. So his isolated power number in 2021 was 5 when he pulled the ball. It was 522. Last year in 2022, it was 519, basically the same. And then all of a sudden last year, even though I mentioned his slugging percentage and I mentioned the home runs, last year his isolated power to the pull side dropped from 519 to 385. That's a huge drop. So maybe he believes the power is not anything what it was before when he pulls the ball. Which, again, is this age? Is this a back condition? Is this tinkering too much?
Yep.
What has sort of freaked him out about this? His isolated power numbers were really down last year when he pulled the ball. Okay, I got to that part. I found something that might explain this. This fever he has to just hit to the opposite field, hit to the opposite field, hit to the opposite field, I just maybe that's it. Maybe that ISO number is something that's in his head because that's a pretty big drop,
It's big, and the one thing I'll throw the factor that's part of this that we'll never know unless he's truly honest is how much is the back still there or is it not? He may tell us it's not, but it was. I know it was a factor at the end of the year when he shut it down. So,
sure.
Well, how good is it? Because you walk into at least one home run in spring training between big start of spring and now, and he hasn't walked into one yet.
Well, and here's the other thing. Again, this is all just a world of confusion trying to figure this out. All right. So what I just looked at, gosh, I can't believe it's 4:45, man.
We're going.
I just keep rolling on the river.
There you go.
He's never had, even in the Colorado days, right?
Yep.
The Coors Field days. Gold-Arenado has never had power. Basically no power hitting to the opposite field. So why is this now going to be the thing that's going to get him on track? I gave you those isolated numbers when he was hitting when he was pulling the ball. His isolated power numbers were over, it's 519, 522, really, really strong. I mean strong. His isolated power numbers, the highest that he ever was in Colorado was 2018. It was 245. That's nothing special. Then it dropped to 152. He came to St. Louis. His isolated power number in order, 21, 22, 23, 24. It was 093, then 043, then 045. This year it's nothing because there's no power. They hadn't hit anything the opposite field that computes to an extra base hit. So he's never had success trying to go the opposite way. Never. Factually, never had success. Why is this why has he concluded that this is the solution? I do not get it.
It's strange. It really is. Even yesterday, in the one hit he did get an RBI, it was right back up the middle.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But to your point, what's wrong with
I don't know.
You're jacking one? I don't know.